So you've just raised $100,000 on Kickstarter. Congratulations. The champagne's popping, your inbox is exploding, 5,000 backers are cheering you on. Then the factory invoice hits. $150,000. You're 50 grand short, with thousands of customers waiting. This is how Kickstarter campaigns actually die. Not from a lack of demand, but from bad math. In developing over 2,000 products, I can tell you this with certainty. These 5 checks decide whether your campaign makes money or bankrupts you. Point number 1, the landed cost lie. Here's where most creators get destroyed. They ask a factory for a per unit price. They see a nice low number. They add a markup, they launch, and when the campaign funds, they think they're profitable. They're not, because factory cost is not necessarily real cost. Actually, not even close. After production comes tariffs, ocean freight, custom duties, warehousing, fulfillment, shipping to every backer's door, and all that comes after the factory quote. I had a client who thought they had massive margins. When we calculated the total landed cost, their profit collapsed by nearly 80%. At margins that thin, one shipping mistake wipes out everything. Here's the fix. You must calculate total landed cost before you set your pledge price. Factory cost plus everything between the factory and the customer's hands. That's validation first. You don't make money from backers until you know the math works. Point 2, the prototype trap, or the DFM audit. Your prototype works perfectly. It looks great. It functions beautifully. Your backers love it. You launch. You fund. You send the files to the factory. You respond with one sentence. We can't make this. Here's the reality. 3D printing and injection molding are completely different worlds. Different materials, different tolerances, different constraints. Wall thicknesses that print fails in molding. Features that look simple create massive tooling problems. I had a client who spent years perfecting a 3D printed prototype. The factory said tooling would cost 5 times more and require a full redesign. A prototype that works is not the same thing as a product that can be manufactured. The trap is assuming the factory can just make it. They can't. Never launch without DFM approval, which stands for Design for Manufacturability. Get factory sign-off on your CAD before you promise anything to backers. At Rabbit, we machine prototypes from production-grade materials, not 3D prints. Validation first means you know it can be built, and we also validate with all the DFM changes included. Point 3, the retail margin math. Most creators price Kickstarter to break even or make a small profit. That feels smart until you try to scale, because Kickstarter pricing is not your business model. It's just your launch pricing. If you go to Amazon, the fees eat up a massive chunk. If you go to retail, buyers want to pay less than half of the retail price. So those healthy Kickstarter margins, well, they turn into losses overnight. I had a client raise 6 figures with a successful campaign. Then the retail buyers came in. Wholesale pricing made every single sale unprofitable. The campaign succeeded, but the business failed. If your pricing can't survive beyond Kickstarter, you don't have a company. If you're realizing your prototype might not be manufacturable or your pricing ignores landed costs, don't panic. This is fixable, but only before launch. I've opened up free strategy sessions where we run your product idea through these exact 5 checks. We'll tell you what's validated and what's a landmine waiting to explode. Links in the description. Book your call. Point 4, the tooling quote versus the tooling contract. This is brutal. You ask the factory, how much for tooling? They give you a number, you budget, you launch, you raise money, you wire the deposit, then the factory sends you the real quote. Suddenly, it's 2 to 3 times higher. You're over budget before production even starts. But backers are waiting. You have no leverage. Roughly, it's not a contract. It's a guess. Many factories give low estimates to win your business, then discover complexity later. I've seen clients raise 6 figures only to get tooling quotes 3 times higher than expected. They fulfilled orders and made almost nothing. Never launch on estimates. Get fixed bid tooling contracts before launch. Lock in pricing, sign specs, cavities, materials, cycle times, everything. Validation first means you know your real costs before you take a dollar. Point 5, the minimum viable batch check. Here's the real killer. Factories give you great pricing at high volumes, so creators calculate profit based on dream numbers. Then the campaign funds, but at a lower volume. They go back to the factory, the price per unit explodes because setup costs are now spread across fewer units. I had a client whose cost per unit nearly doubled when volume came in lower than expected. The campaign survived, barely, But you must validate profitability at the minimum order quantity, not your best case scenario. Get tiered pricing. Know your worst case, know your best case. Hope for the best, plan for the worst. That's validation. Here's the hard truth. The winner's curse is real. Getting funded can bankrupt you if you skip validation. These 5 checks prevent the disasters most Kickstarter creators never see coming. Calculate landed cost, not factory cost. Get DFM approval, not just prototypes. Price for a real business, not just Kickstarter. Lock tooling contracts, not estimates. Validate at minimum volume, not dream volume. Kickstarter isn't about raising money. It's about validating a business model. Don't ask, can I get funded? Ask, can I deliver profitably? That's the difference between a successful campaign and a successful business. If you're planning a Kickstarter launch and want to avoid the winner's curse, I've opened up free strategy sessions. We'll run your product through these exact 5 validation checks and tell you what's solid and what needs fixing before you take $1 from backers. Links in the description. Go to rabbitproductdesign.com and book your call. Don't launch until these 5 things are validated. If you want to see why 95% of product ideas die before they even reach Kickstarter, watch the next video on screen. I break down the fatal mistakes that kill products during development. So click now.